Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Joe Davich, and I'm the Executive Director here at the Georgia Center for the Book, state affiliate of the National Center for the Book in the Library of Congress. We are so very pleased that you've taken the time to stop by our virtual booth here at the 2020 National Book Festival. Right now, I'm sitting in the Georgia Center for the Book archive room at the Decatur Library in downtown Decatur, Georgia. The Decatur Library and the DeKalb County Public Library are our hosts. This archive is filled with books illustrated and written by Georgia authors and artists. It also houses books written by authors who've stopped by our library to talk about their books. Today, we'd like to talk to you about the 2020 official Georgia selection for the National Book Festival's Roadmap to Reading, Great Reads About Great Places, Life in a Frozen World, Wildlife of Antarctica, by Mary Batten and illustrated by Thomas Gonzalez. Thomas Gonzalez lives right here in Georgia. It's published by Peachtree Publishing Company, which is in downtown Atlanta, located 6 miles east of our building. If you'd like to find out more about Great Reads About Great Places, visit read.gov. And if you would like to find out more about the Georgia Center for the Book, visit georgiacenterforthebook.org. Thank you all so very much for stopping by our virtual booth. We hope you have a wonderful time. And now let's give a big old Georgia welcome to Mary Batten.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be participating in this festival virtually. I'm going to begin reading my new book, Life in a Frozen World. Ice, as far as the eye can see, blanketing the continent on the bottom of the world, Antarctica, the coldest, windiest, driest place on Earth. Yet in this extreme environment, life thrives. Over millions of years, many living things, from microscopic bacteria to the blue whale, the largest animal that ever lived, have evolved to survive on the ice, in the ice, and under the ice. Shaped by layers of snow and ice older than the human species, this frozen world is their home. Green plants are the base of the food chains in most ecosystems, even in the communities that flourish in this extreme environment. No trees grow on Antarctica, but a forest of giant algae thrives under the sea. These seaweeds have adapted to grow in extremely cold water and to photosynthesize or use sunlight to make food. They do this even in the low light of Antarctica's dark winter, June through August, when the sun is not visible. Growing on the underside of the ice is an upside down pasture of tiny green plants, another type of algae called phytoplankton. Sea ice algae living underneath thick ice have adapted to the extremely low light conditions. They are very efficient in their use of available light to photosynthesize and reproduce rapidly. During Antarctica's winter, when the ocean around the continent freezes, these algae are the main food of krill, shrimp-like creatures about the size of an adult person's thumb. Swimming in swarms so massive they can be seen from space, krill are the most abundant creatures in the Southern Ocean. They are called a keystone species because they play a key role in Antarctica's food chains. Krill have the amazing ability to shrink themselves and undergo long periods without food. These adaptations help them live through the severe cold of the Antarctic winter. In the Southern Ocean, the species called Antarctic krill makes up an estimated biomass of over 500 million tons, roughly twice that of humans. Fish, seabirds, penguins, seals, whales, and other ocean creatures eat tons and tons of krill, and many of them depend on this food source for survival. Krill are a favorite food of ice fish, the most unusual fish in the world. Sometimes they are called white-blooded fish because their blood is nearly as clear as water and their gills are white. Ice fish are the only vertebrates, animals with backbones, that do not make red blood cells. Humans and all other vertebrates make hemoglobin, the substance that makes blood red and carries oxygen to every cell in a creature's body. Ice fish need oxygen too, but they get it directly from the water instead of from red blood cells. They do not have scales like many other fish, so they are able to absorb the oxygen in the water directly through their skin and gills. Ice fish, like all other Antarctic fishes, have another remarkable adaptation that enables them to survive in the frigid water. They produce a natural antifreeze protein that keeps their blood from freezing solid. Many types of whales spend at least part of their lives in the icy water around Antarctica. They can live in this extreme environment for several reasons. They migrate to other regions during the coldest seasons. As warm-blooded mammals, they can increase their rate of burning calories and help stabilize the temperature of their bodies in freezing conditions. And they have a dense layer of insulated fat called blubber under their skin to help keep them warm. Humpback, minke, fin, blue, and other baleen whales feast on the plentiful krill in this extreme environment. When feeding, a baleen whale opens its gigantic mouth and takes a great gulp of water along with whatever small animals are swimming in it. Instead of teeth, these whales have baleen, long, thin plates hanging in rows from their upper jaws. When the whale pushes the water back out of its mouth, the baleen acts as a strainer, trapping food such as krill inside its mouth. A blue whale can eat 4 tons of krill a day. Orcas, or killer whales, also live in Antarctic waters. Unlike baleen whales, they have teeth and eat not only krill, but also other animals such as seals and penguins. Penguins are Antarctica's most well-known and well-studied inhabitants. 5 species have adapted to survive the freezing temperatures here: adelies, chinstraps, emperors, gentoos, and macaronis. They all have top coats of waterproof feathers over a layer of soft, warm down, and under that, a thick layer of fat. When grooming, they spread an oil produced by a special gland over their feathers. This oil keeps their feathers waterproof. Once a year, they molt, losing feathers and growing new ones. Although they cannot fly in the air, penguins can soar beneath the sea. Gentoos are the fastest swimmers, reaching speeds up to 22 miles per hour. Emperors, the largest penguins, are the only animals that live on top of the ice during Antarctica's harsh winter. They have the densest feathers, which help them stay warm through blizzards, temperatures that drop as low as minus 76 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 60 degrees centigrade, and winds that reach 124 miles per hour, 2,000 kilometers per hour. Fur seals, leopard seals, Ross seals, Weddell seals, crab-eater seals, and elephant seals all give birth and care for their young on the ice. Thick layers of blubber insulate them against the cold. During Antarctica's winter, Weddell seals live under the ice where it is warmer than above. Their sharp, pointy front teeth are specially adapted for breaking through the ice to make breathing holes. When a female is ready to give birth, she uses her teeth to make a hole large enough to haul her heavy body up onto the ice to have her baby. Beneath the sea lies a hidden world teeming with invertebrates, animals without backbones, soft corals, sponges, clams, gigantic worms, sea squirts, sea stars, and many others. Sea stars, or starfish, are the top predators in this world. They feed primarily on other sea animals. Tiny shrimp-like creatures called amphipods graze on seaweed. In these icy waters, creatures grow more slowly and live longer than in temperate seas. Sea urchins and scallops may live a century. And Arctic sponges are the longest-lived animals on the planet. Some Antarctic creatures grow to giant size. Sea spiders as large as a dinner plate don't have gills or lungs, but absorb oxygen through their skin. Their spindly legs hold their guts, which not only digest their food, but also pump their blood. Nobody knows why creatures grow so huge in polar waters. It may be related to the fact that cold water holds more oxygen than warmer water. Antarctica has no human population. People never adapted to living year-round in this frozen wilderness. It is the most pristine environment on Earth, the home to many complex and delicately balanced ecosystems. But humans have found ways to explore much of the continent and to carry on science there. Antarctica is the only continent protected for peace and science. 54 countries have signed the 1959 Antarctic Treaty, preserving the continent for scientific investigation and peaceful purposes only. 30 nations have research stations on the continent. Scientists working there share information and work together in the true spirit of cooperation and peace. Over millions of years, Antarctic creatures have evolved to thrive in their icy habitats, and they have lived in balance with each other and their extreme environment. But will they be able to adapt to changes that are now happening at a much faster rate than in past centuries? Can they survive in a warmer world? The atmosphere and ocean are warming around the western Antarctica Peninsula at an increasing pace. The ice is melting, and the resulting changes affect every living organism on the continent. Specialists in many scientific fields are leading expeditions to Antarctica to learn more about the impact of climate change. During Antarctica's short summer, from November through February, when the sun shines most of the time, scientists arrive from all over the world. While the weather is milder, researchers carry out a wide variety of studies, from examining changes in snowfall patterns to measuring the growth of under the ice algae. One method used by scientists to learn about the changing conditions in this part of the world is collecting ice cores from the ice sheet covering the continent. Ice cores hold thousands of years of Antarctica's climate history frozen in time and show how its past climate compares with today's. Like tree rings, bands of white and varying shades of gray on an ice core teach scientists about conditions over time. Bubbles in the ice tell scientists how much carbon dioxide, the greenhouse gas warming the planet, was in the air at a certain point in time. The oldest continuous core record taken from bedrock, almost 2 miles below the ice, is 800,000 years old. A lot of the scientific work in Antarctica is done underwater, where most of the continent's animals and plants live. Scuba diving scientists are studying how changes in the ice affect animal communities in Antarctica's shallow coastal waters. Young krill usually spend the Antarctic winter fattening up on the algae that grows under the ice. But the amount of sea ice is shrinking, and the large species of algae that the young krill prefer has been replaced by a smaller species. As a result, fewer krill make it to adulthood, and their population is decreasing. Scientists worry that ice fish might not be able to survive the warming of Antarctica's waters. For the last 10 to 14 million years, the water temperature of the Southern Ocean has been below 41 degrees Fahrenheit, 5 degrees centigrade. Many of these fish might die if the temperature rises only a few more degrees. Every November, for at least the last 700 years, thousands of Adelie penguins have come to Torgeson Island along the northwestern coast of Antarctica to breed, lay their eggs, and raise their young. But both sea and air temperatures in this area are warming faster than other parts of Antarctica. As a result, humidity has risen, causing unseasonable snowstorms. Now it snows while female penguins are incubating their eggs. When the snow melts, the meltwater drowns the eggs, wiping out the next generation of penguins. There were once 15,000 breeding pairs, but there are now fewer than 3,000. As the pack ice melts, the Adelies must also swim farther and farther to find enough krill to eat. They may one day disappear from the Antarctic Peninsula. Floating ice shelves, thousands of feet thick, form a kind of dam around Antarctica, keeping the towering land-based glaciers, huge, slowly moving masses of accumulated ice, from flowing into the sea. But the sea temperatures are rising, and the ice shelves are melting. Scientists who have worked for many years at the U.S. Palmer Station on Anvers Island now hear daily the thunderous roar of calving, the breaking away of enormous chunks of ice from a nearby glacier. The loss of sea ice is endangering the habitat of krill, and the alarming drop in the krill population means a greatly reduced food source for other sea creatures. The decline in sea ice is also a threat to species that depend on it as a place to reproduce. Antarctica may seem too far away to affect us, but rising temperatures of atmosphere and ocean in this frozen world not only affects the species that make their homes here, they also affect the weather and climate in other parts of the planet. Scientists estimate that the melting of Antarctica's land ice will lead to a rise in sea level of between 3 and 16 inches, 0.8 and 41 centimeters by 2100. Antarctica is telling us we must take action to keep this frozen world that has existed for millions of years from melting into the sea over the next few centuries. Antarctica's creatures depend on the ice. In the long run, so do we.
Thank you so very much, Mary, for sharing your absolutely fascinating and beautiful book, Life in a Frozen World. I want to ask you a few questions quickly. Not only did you have to write a children's book, but you've written a children's nonfiction picture book. What's it like working on a project like that? Are there certain things that you have to keep in mind instead of just creating the story completely by yourself?
Well, since I've been writing nonfiction books for the past 20, 30 years, it's a very natural thing for me to do. And I'm so intrigued by what goes on in the natural world, because to me, far more fascinating things are going on in the natural world than one finds in fiction. The ice fish, for example. Who would create a vertebrate that has no hemoglobin? You would think maybe in science fiction somebody would create such a creature, but here we have it in the Southern Ocean, this ice fish that makes its own natural antifreeze and it produces no hemoglobin. So that's my fascination is a great motivator, and I just constantly like the process of dealing with scientists. I love that process because I'm learning. My modus operandi is usually I start out knowing nothing about the subject. In this case, I knew quite a bit because I had worked for Jacques Cousteau and the Cousteau Society, and was working there when he mounted the 1990 expedition where he took 6 children from each of the other continents to Antarctica. And we had a campaign getting school children around the world to sign petitions asking that governments protect Antarctica from mineral exploration, and it is indeed protected from mineral exploration. So I love the process. I love learning new areas of science, and this one is my virtual journey to Antarctica. I didn't get to go on the expedition, but this is my virtual journey.
Wonderful. You gave us so many great creatures that we met throughout the pages of the book: the penguins, the whales, the krill, the ice fish. Were there certain ones that you chose in particular, and were there any that you had to leave out?
Well, yeah, I chose these particular ones because I try to put in the book the most interesting, the creatures that are most interesting to me and that I think kids would really react to. And when I found out about the ice fish, that was number 1 on the list. That ice fish had to go in this book. And the krill, which is such an extraordinary story, I think, the biomass of it, that they weigh more than the total biomass of humans on Earth. And that's spectacular. These tiny little things. And they're the base of most of the Antarctic food chains. The whales, I knew kids would, everybody likes to know about whales. So I knew they would like that. And the penguins, everybody loves penguins. Have to have something about the penguins. The emperor penguins are the ones that have been most written about. A film was made about them because of the extraordinary story of how the males huddle together, incubating the one egg that their mate has laid throughout the harshest, coldest part of the Antarctic winter, while the female has been out feeding, so she gets back just in time as the egg is hatching, so she can then take over the feeding. And the males who have lost a huge amount of their body weight just huddling there in the cold and moving around because they haven't been able to eat during the Antarctic winter. And the timing of natural creatures, of animals, in this exchange where the female comes back just in time to take over from her mate and feed the baby, and the males go on the long journey back to the sea where they feed and fatten themselves up so they can come back and then help feed the baby. I guess the ice fish was the most startling creature to me, and the krill the most important in terms of the ecosystem.
Well, and the book is so beautifully illustrated by Thomas Gonzalez, who's a Georgian, and we're so proud of the work he does. What is it like working with an illustrator? Was there any back and forth between you two, or did he just take your text and produce these images?
Well, first of all, I want to say that producing a children's book takes a team of people. And I feel extremely fortunate that Peachtree selected Tom Gonzalez to do the illustrations in this book. He's a wonderful artist. I am thrilled with his work. We had very few backs and forths, and they were usually by email. I gave him a lot of research of sources, visual sources, YouTube videos that had been taken by scientists. I sent him a list of these visual sources, and he and I had, as I said, a few back and forths by email with questions. Mostly the guidance was between my editor, my wonderful editor, Vicki Hollifield at Peachtree, and Tom. So I have never actually met Tom. Maybe we could have a Zoom meeting at some point, because he's at work right now on my next book in this Life in the Extreme series. And it would be fun to actually meet him. But this is, this is very normal in getting your picture book published. The publisher, the editor, usually selects an illustrator that they've worked with before and that they think would be appropriate for the particular book. And then, they'll tell me to put together a list of resources for that illustrator. And when he actually starts doing illustration, then the editor sends them to me so I can make any comments I might have that, well, this animal wouldn't be in that particular location. Because the other thing about writing a children's science book is that you want to be as accurate scientifically as possible. And that's why I am fortunate enough that I find scientists who've been doing work in the area that I'm writing about. I just reach out cold, get in touch with them, and they have been so generous with their time in answering my questions, either interviews by phone or email interviews. So it goes back to the team. There's a team involved. And then, of course, there's the book designers, the people who do the layout and for these beautiful pages that you see in terms of which text is going to go with which illustrations and how much text can you have. And my editor always gets back to me because I tend sometimes to be too wordy. And she will say, we need to cut about 50 words on page so-and-so. So it's a constant back and forth work process.
Mary, what's one thing that you hope readers and families can take away from your book?
First of all, I hope they'll be excited by Antarctica and by learning what an amazing ecosystem it is and what a variety of life lives in Antarctica. But secondly, I hope they, like the school children that were mobilized all over the world, they will influence their parents, their world leaders, their governments to take climate change seriously, because they are going to inherit what the grown-ups do or don't do in fighting climate change.
Well, thank you so very much for joining us, Mary, and participating in our virtual booth here at the National Book Festival. And I encourage you all to pick up a copy of Life in a Frozen World, either at your local bookstore or from your local library. We hope you enjoyed today's session, and we'll see you all again very, very soon. Thank you all so much for attending the 2020 National Book Festival, and goodbye from Georgia.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to participate.